kids doing? How are they adjusting to school?
Baruch Hashem, everyone's doing well. Doing well, thank
Very
you.
good. Good. So glad to hear. And how's Alana doing?
Holding up. Everyone's
Okay.
doing their thing.
Okay. That's good.
Okay, let's get started. Thank you so much for joining us again today. Since this is Thursday, we will do a Rashi, sort of, as you'll see in a second, from the fifth Aliyah, although the pasuk we'll focus on is in the fifth Aliyah, so at least I qualify in that way for following my own protocols. But I think we say every day, 3 times a day in the Amidah, the bracha of Magen Avraham. We're all familiar with it, the end of the first bracha of the Amidah, Baruch Atah Hashem Magen Avraham. The source of that pasuk, of that statement in the Amidah of Magen Avraham, is actually a pasuk in today's Aliyah, in the fifth Aliyah of our parsha, in which Hashem promises Avraham, Achar hadvarim ha'eleh, hayad dvar Hashem al Avraham b'machazeh lemor, al tira Avraham, anochi magen lach, scharcha harbeh me'od. As the pasuk says here, this is immediately following the whole incident of the war of the 4 kings and the 5 kings, and Avram refusing to take any rewards or any booty from the war, completely attributing his victory to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And coming off of that, leading into the section of more brachos in the Bris Bein HaBesarim, is this transitional pasuk, Achar hadvarim ha'eleh, where Hashem comes to Avram in an appearance, in a dream, and says, Al tira Avram, don't be afraid. Anochi magen lach. I am your magen. I am your protector. I am your shield. So the whole question in the pasuk, what exactly was Avram worried about? The psukim don't tell us over here. From the assurances that Hashem gives him about progeny, we learn over here that what he was worried about is whether he will have heirs, whether he will have progeny. Hashem's giving him all this bracha. He just won the war. He sees the future opening up before him, but he has no progeny to pass it on to, which is why some of the questions ensue over here. Avram says to Hashem, but I'm all alone. I have no one to follow me. What are you going to do? And then Hashem gives him more promises of progeny to come. But Anochi Magen Lach is the statement that Hashem makes. I am your Magen. So in the Amidah, when we say Baruch Atah Hashem, blessed are you God, who is titled as Magen Avraham, the shield, the protector of Avraham, that's based here on our pasuk. Now, you'll notice there's a slight imbalance in that first bracha of the Amidah. We mentioned Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. We mentioned the 3 avos. God is the God of each of those 3 people. And then when we come back to it at the end of the paragraph, we say, Baruch Atah Hashem, Magen Avraham. Why Magen Avraham? Why is Avram mentioned twice? Elokei Avraham and then Magen Avraham. Why is it not Baruch Atah Hashem, Magen Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? So Chazal were sensitive to this question. They see a textual attribution. Here's our Rashi for the day. Rashi is not on our pasuk of Magen Lach and Chamishi, but going back to the first Aliyah, to a Rashi that we did not see. So in the second pasuk of the parsha, Hashem promises Avram, Ve'escha legoy gadol, I'm going to make you a great nation. Va'avarechecha, I'm going to bless you. Va'agadla shemecha, I'm going to make your name great. Ve'hayei bracha, 4 expressions of blessing are given to Avram. So Rashi quotes here from the Gemara in Pesachim a drasha on this pasuk, saying that each of these 4 blessings is a reference to the future text that we would have one day of the Amidah, or really the Amidah that we would compose would be in reference back to this pasuk, to the 4 blessings of this pasuk. Ve'escha legoy gadol, zeh she'omer Elokei Avraham. Ve'avarechecha, zeh she'omer Elokei Yitzchak. Va'agadla shemecha, zeh she'omer Elokei Yaakov. So the first 3 blessings of the pasuk are a reference to the blessing that we say every day in the Amidah, Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. How does that fit in the pasuk? Well, Hashem promises Avram that I'm going to make you a great nation that can continue to date back to you. V'avarecha, I'm going to bless you. How? Because people are going to continue to bring blessing into the world through you and your progeny. V'agadla shemecha, your name will be great, etc., etc. Those are the references to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov in the Amidah. But Yachol yuchos min bekulan, says the Gemara, says Rashi. Is it possible that the end of the bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem, the ending, the chasima, will be with all of them again? Baruch Atah Hashem, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. No, Talmud Lomar v'hayei bracha. That's a reference to the 4th language of bracha in the pasuk, v'hayei bracha, which is specific here to Avraham. Therefore, we learn becha chosmin v'lo bahem. So the Gemara already analyzed this and told us that it's important that we end the bracha of the Amidah specifically with Avram and not with all of the Avos, and it hinges it on this pasuk in the first Aliyah, the Heyei bracha. You, Avram, are the source of all blessing. Yes, Yitzchak and Yaakov also bring blessing into the world, and therefore they're also mentioned, but you're mentioned twice because the Heyei bracha, you, the first in the series of the Avos, are the source of all blessing. But I think there's another explanation to why we end with that particular phrase about Avram, Magen Avraham, and not just a general reference to Avram, right? From the Rashi in the first Aliyah, all we know is that we have to reference Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov in the beginning of the paragraph, and that the bracha should end with a reference to Avram. But it doesn't say what the reference should be. How do we come up with a specific reference from our Aliyah today of Chamishi of Magen Avram? Why don't we say, Baruch Atah Hashem, Elokei Avraham, or Baruch Atah Hashem, Hamivarech es Avraham. Why do we specifically say Magen Avraham? That Rashi in the beginning only answers why it's a reference to Avram. It doesn't explain why we use the word Magen, or that particular phrase, that particular description of Hashem as the Magen Avraham. So I want to conclude by telling you what I think is the reason why we say Magen Avraham at the end of the bracha, and it's rooted specifically in our Aliyah today, in this fifth Aliyah. The pasuk which I showed you from our Aliyah of Magen Avraham is a response to Avram's fear about whether he would have progeny. And Hashem says, Al tira Avram, Anochi Magen lach. Don't worry, I am your Magen, your shield. I think the basic idea that Hashem was conveying to him is, I'm going to protect you in a way that will ensure that you have progeny now and that you have progeny that continue on into the future. Well, we are those descendants. We are that progeny. So when we start the paragraph of the Amidah, we reference God as a God of those who came before us. You are Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. But when we get to the end of the paragraph, we want to make the relationship between us and God a little bit more personal. So we end by saying, yeah, I knew you were their God, and your Hakel, Hagadol, Hagibor, Hanor, you have all these accolades. But now what I want to say to you, God, is Baruch Atah Hashem, Magen Avraham. You, God, are the protector of Avram, which allowed him to have progeny, and that progeny is me, and you are my God. In a way, by saying Magen Avraham, and going back to the fifth Aliyah in our Parsha, the promise of progeny, we connect ourselves back to the history of the Jewish people, all the way back to Avraham, and in a certain way classify God not just as their God, but as our own God as well, which is a critical component of our development as we get further and further into the Amidah, recognizing that God is way out there and transcendent, the God of history, but also the God that is intimate for us, the God is that connected to us. So in a certain way, it's a beautiful way to capture both the theme of the Shalshelas HaMasorah, the connection to Jewish history, and the connection to God, both through that chain of history and through our own personal relationship. We can see ourselves, as we begin the Amidah, as the heirs to Magen Avraham, the heirs to that promise fulfilled. We stand as those who give testimony to the fact that Hashem upheld his promise. Baruch Atah Hashem, blessed are you, God. You were really the Magen Avraham. And the fact that I'm here and I have a relationship with you and I'm connected with you thousands and thousands of years later means that the promise was successful and the promise was fulfilled. And now that I recognize my place in that promise and my gratitude for being here and my relationship with you, I'm now ready to go on to the rest of the brachos of the Amidah. To me, that's the reason for the connection to Magen Avraham, and a thought perhaps that you can think about not only as you daven the Amidah, but as you go into review today's Aliyah in the Parsha. Wish you all a wonderful day ahead. Take care, and we'll see you tomorrow, God willing.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good